In the last lesson, we spent a lot of time practicing factorizing and dealing with just expressions. Whereas today, we're going to talk more about equations. And the difference between an expression and an equation is an important one. This number one is an equation. And the reason it's an equation is it has two sides and an equal sign. If I have something like this, that is just an expression. And an expression, you either simplify or factorize, whereas an equation, especially a quadratic equation, you solve. Now, whenever you solve a quadratic equation, there's kind of a four-step process that we follow. Step one is put into standard form. Step two is to factorize. Step three is to split. Step four is to solve. Now, first of all, we need to make sure we know what standard form is. Number one is in standard form because everything is on one side, and you have going from the biggest terms down to the smallest terms. So this is called the quadratic term, or the term of degree 2. Then we have the linear term, or the term of degree 1. And then we have what's called the constant term. And so this is in standard form. And we say that in number one, we would say that A is 1. We would say B is 5. And we would say C is 6. Now, in number two, we're not in standard form. And the reason we're not in standard form is mainly because of the 12. But if we move the 12 across, then we are in standard form. And in terms of describing this, that means that if we wanted to solve this equation, we've got this, and now we are ready to factorize. So I want you to factorize number two, the one that's in yellow in standard form. I want you to factorize that for me. What method of factorization should I use? What method of factorization should I use? I think we can factorize this as a trinomial. And we covered this in the last lesson. I know some of you will have access to the quadratic formula. I'm only going to cover that later. So for today, I'm sticking with this. So let's have a look. 3 and 4, does that work? No. 4 and 3, no. What about 6 and 2? Oh, that could work. So 6, no. What? Let's have a look. How do we balance this? There's so many choices with 12. 12 and 1, no. 6 and 2, no. No. 3 and 4, no. 3 and 4. Oh, I wonder if this is 1, 4 and 3. But now, if we use 4 and 3, let's have a look. -9 plus 4, that's not work. So this might actually be a quadratic formula one, but I don't think so. Let me try that other way around just in case. So this is 4. And then if that was 3, oh, there we go. No, that's not going to work either. If that was, okay, everyone, I might actually, this might be one of those quadratic formula ones, unless I've missed something. 6 and 2 won't work. 12 and 1, no. Okay, so normally you'd be able to factorize this. I'm having a moment, if someone can spot it, but I suspect maybe this is a quadratic formula question. So assuming that we could factorize it, we would then split and we would then solve. Okay, but I'm going to move on just because I don't want to waste too much time. And we're going to learn about the quadratic formula in future. So let us go to a question like this, which I know we can factorize without the quadratic formula. I want you to solve this quadratic equation using the 4-step process move it into standard form. Then I want you to factorize. Then I want you to split. Then I want you to solve. And I want you to tell me when you are done. Or if I've gone too fast or you've got a question, I want you to raise your hand. Okay, over to you guys. Let's do this. Let's do this. Give me a thumbs up if you're on the journey. Give me a thumbs up if you're on the journey. Okay. Adlikang, that's fine. If you just have a look at the recording, then I'm sure that you'll be ready to go for the quiz. All right. Okay, so step one, to get into standard form, I would be that. To factorize it, I would do that. Now, the split just says that if you know that this bracket is 0, then 0 times anything is 0, and so then that must be an answer. Or if x makes this bracket 0, then it doesn't matter what the yellow bracket is, it'll also be an answer. And the way we handle that is by writing x minus 5 is 0, x minus 2 is 0. Now, what will be my answer to this? What will be my answers to this quadratic equation? So all we're going to do is we're going to go x is 5 or x is 2. X is 5 and x is 2. And that's how you solve a quadratic equation. Now, assuming that you're not using the quadratic formula. So give me a thumbs up if that was okay. Give me a thumbs down if it wasn't okay. Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, let's take this idea and let's have I like a good multiple choice question. See if you can give me the answer to this multiple choice question. What are the solutions to this equation? So in this one, the standard form has already been done. The factorizing has already been done. What you need to do is the split and the solve step. So 4x minus 1 is 0, or 5x plus 6 is 0. And then if you move the 1 across, and then you divide by 4, you get x is a quarter, or you would get x, the minus 6 over 5. And so those would be my two answers. Is there an option that deals with that? Yes, there is. It's going to be a quarter and minus 6 over 5. So the correct answer is B. Yeah, and I see Siamtanda, Stephen, Amy, Sange all agree. Okay, let's do another one. Can you find the solution to this equation, this quadratic equation? Can you find the solution to this quadratic equation? Now, this is a sneaky one, so watch out. It is in standard form, but now you need to factorize. And to factorize, you have a couple of different choices. Which of those choices are you going to choose? It's actually not a difference of two squares because of the x here. What you need to do is you need to factorize it by doing that. So that is the factorized form. And now the question is, what are my answers going to be? Because I need to do the split and I need to do the solve. And I think we can all see now, as long as we didn't fall into the trap of the difference two squares, we get x is 0 or x minus 4 is 0 or x is 4. And so we need two answers, and the two answers are 0 and 4, and so it's D. It's B is partially correct, but it's not the most correct it can be. But it will catch, there's two tricks here. The one is the difference of two squares will catch some students, and it's not because this x stops it. And also we always check if there's a highest common factor first. The second thing is when we split, the x part has its own answer. Give me a thumbs up if you follow the answer now that you've seen that. That was, I put that in because I knew it would catch you a little bit, but that's part of the learning process. All right. Okay, let's do this one. So it says here, it says, Tom and Katie, so this is a British website, Tom and Katie are discussing how to solve this quadratic equation. And they say, Tom says one solution is 2 over 5. Katie says one solution is x is minus 5 over 2. And then it says, who is correct? Is only Tom correct? Only Katie? Both Tom and Katie? Or neither of them? Which one is the correct answer? I suppose we have to work out. I have to do a bit of a split there. So that's what I get as my answers. But now I have to look at the question and see what. So Tom says one solution is 2 over 5. Well, I'm afraid I don't agree with Tom. I only see a solution which is minus 2 over 5. Katie says a solution is minus 5 over 2. But I disagree with Katie because the answer I got was 5 over 2. So which option is going to be correct here? Is it going to be A, B, C, or D? Unfortunately, neither of them is correct here. And so the answer for this question is D. Okay, that was quite a tricky way of presenting it, but I think also helpful as we start to think about these questions in more detail. Okay, time for a selection. Time for a selection of quality questions for you to do. So I'm going to choose for you the following questions you are going to do for me. Number 2, you are going to do number 4. And yeah, let's do number 2 and 4. So you guys do 2 and 4, and then you just say 2 done and 4 done in the chat when you're done, and then I'll give you some feedback. If you want to ask a question, pop your hand up and we can have a little discussion. Or if you feel like giving hints to your classmates, give the hints in the chat. So ask yourself, what is the 4-step process? Maybe I should write this down. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so for number 2, I've put the answer on the board. And then 4, I need to first get it into standard form. And now this 2 actually, if I've got times by 2 on one side, I can make it divide by 2 on the other side. But 0 divided by 2 is actually just going to be 0. And so actually I'm going to have to factorize a second time. So that was a bit sneaky. And I get that. Give me a thumbs up if you followed what I did to get to here. Okay. And so now, Simtander, is that a question or is that just a hands up like I can do it? Just want to check. Because I can unmute you if it's a question. Okay, let's unmute you and you can ask a question. Because that was a tricky one. Can you hear me? I'm trying to unmute you. There's a little button at the bottom where you just click. You have to unmute yourself, yeah. Awesome.
Sir,
Yeah,
basically, I just wanted to ask if, like, the first step, we just decided to divide both sides by 2, is it fine?
it's probably better. I think the only reason is I really wanted to focus on the 4-step process. But in reality, dividing at step one and just saying x squared is 16 is probably a even better method. Yeah. So
Okay, thank you, sir.
fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so now we have x plus 4 equals 0, x equals 4, x is minus 4. So 4 and minus 4 is basically the answer there. But that was a really good question, Siamtan, and it reinforces this idea that there are different ways to do things. And you know, once you are confident, you'll start to see them as well. Okay. I want to do number 5 because number 5 looks different. And I feel like we should do something a bit different because you guys are getting rather good at this. So let us shift our attention to number 5. I'll make it nice and big. And we're going to have a little chat about number 5. So what makes, well, that's rather large, isn't it? What makes number 5 a bit more interesting if I say solve that quadratic equation? What is making my life difficult? So if you like me, this X, I'm like, did this X get lost or what happened here? Why is it hanging out at the bottom? That's the thing that's making me feel a bit like, So I want to know, does anybody know how we can turn this equation into standard form if the X is hanging out at the bottom? Does anybody have something they've seen maybe at class or something that could be helpful? Fraction can't be 0. Okay, LCD. Yes, you guys know this. Okay, so what you need to do is you are going to multiply both sides by the thing that is causing the problem. And the thing that is causing the problem is the x. Now, x can't be 0 because of division by 0, so we have to watch out. But basically what I do is I say you put both sides in a bracket and you multiply by x. Now, this side, you get 4x. Not difficult. This side, you get x times 3x. Not difficult. And then what is x times 1 over x? So if you have x and you multiply it by 1 over x, what are you going to end up with? I'll give you a hint. You can put a 1 there. It's 1, exactly. It's just 1. So we have this. Now, it's still not in standard form, but you've dealt with the wandering x over here. Can you please solve it for me from that step? So this does factorize using a normal trinomial. Can you put the answers that you get in the chat once you're done? Okay. So if I split this, I'm going to do the split over here because it's just easier. All x we'll get x is a third or x is 1. Now, notice there is no x equals 0. If there was an x equals 0, we'd have to reject it. But both our answers are valid. X equals a third and x equals 1. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you followed that okay. That was a bit harder. And after the break, the second half of the lesson is going to be dealing with quadratic equations with fractions. So we've got a perfect base to build on for the second half, but we need to now take a break and take care of ourselves. But just give me a thumbs up if you followed that last question. Give me a thumbs down. It'll help me know what needs to go at after the break. Okay. Awesome. You guys are doing well. You're doing really well. So it's really important that when we work as hard as we've been working, we take some time to have a break and get our minds off maths. And so I want you to stand up and I want you to turn on your cameras. I want you to smile at your classmates because we're working hard. We need to make sure we are supporting each other and we want to feel some of that happy, good energy. And I want to see your face and I want to see you standing up and I want you to raise your hands in the air and I want you to breathe in and hold. I want you to breathe in. And another nice deep breath. Breathe in. Okay, so you've got some nice oxygen going through your body. Your body will like that. Now you want to get nice and loose. You want to be nice and relaxed. So you flop your arm around like it's like a piece of string. Flop your other arm around. Get nice and relaxed. You won't be able to do this unless you're nice and relaxed. Like you're one of those advertising guys in the wind when they're blowing. Okay. And then I want you to shake out your legs. Get some circulation in your legs. You've been sitting, so your legs may have gone to sleep. Wake them up. And then shake them out. Okay. All right, then your shoulders are probably getting a bit tense. So why don't you roll them back? Roll them, get them nice and loose. And then you can roll them forward. And your body's just going to be just feeling so much more relaxed if you do this. Okay, then arms to the side, nice small circles. Just loosening up your shoulders. And then change direction, go the opposite direction. Just, there we go. All right, and then shake out your arms again. You want them to feel completely loose and floppy. Shake out the other arm. Shake out the leg. Okay, so we got some oxygen. Our bodies are feeling nice and relaxed. Now we want some blood to pump through our body. And to do that, we're going to do a jumping jack. This is the jumping jack. And we're going to do 15 of these. Make sure the space around you is clear so you don't whack anything or anyone. Okay, let's go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and ooh, my body feels now like it's forgotten completely about maths. Where am I? I'm in like an aerobics class. And that's what we're going for. Okay. So just to further let us unwind a bit, solve that lovely logic puzzle for me. What is a kitty cat plus a lion plus a chicken equal? Okay, so Amy has got us, so Siamtanda, kitty cat, no problem. 20. Now what about Simba the lion? Do you know that Simba is the word for lion in Swahili from East Africa? That's where the Simba comes from. Um, so what is the line? I don't think the line is 12 because 12 plus 12 would be 24, and 24 minus 20 is 44. So I don't agree with you on the 12, but what I will say is using the magic of mathematics, if I add 20 to both sides, I know that two lions are 64. Okay. So Siamtanda says a line is 32. And I think, Siamtanda, I'm tending to agree with you because together that's 64 minus 20 is 42. Yeah, perfect. Okay, now you're going to find me the chicken and then the final answer. Or birdie, or whatever that is. An angry bird. It doesn't look like an angry bird, but okay. So birdie is 30. And the lion we decided was 32. So what is my final thing? Well, 30 and 32 is 62, and 82 is our final answer. So if you ever go on a game show and they have these puzzles, you guys are going to be waxed. You'll know exactly what to do. Okay, so let's go back to our lesson. So first half, we did factorizing and solving quadratic equations. The second half of the lesson is going to focus more on solving more interesting quadratic equations. Let's go to something like this. Okay. Solve for x equations with fractions. Now, the key thing that you're going to need to do in these types of questions is get rid of the stuff at the bottom. Now, what I'm going to suggest as the best way to do this is to say, look, you know these things are causing issues. What you do is you want to get the lowest, what they call an LCM. And the way to get it is normally just to go x minus 1 times x plus 7. The two things here you're multiplying. And what you're going to do is, let me make my pen a bit thinner so you can actually see what I'm writing. Let's make it. So x minus 1, x plus 7. And I'm going to multiply this side by x minus 1 times x plus 7. And I'm also going to multiply this side by x minus 1 times x plus 7. Now, you don't always have to write the step in. It can be implicit. But I think it's a good idea to just show you this from the beginning. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put brackets around this. And the reason I'm going to put brackets around this is it reminds me that it belongs to the original fraction. Okay, now, this is what we need to do. If you multiply both sides by the same thing, it is still the same equation. But because you chose your LCM so wisely, you can now cancel out x minus 1 over x minus 1. That's the same as 1. You can also cancel out that over there. That means you have the same equation is x plus 7 times x minus 2 equal to 2x minus 1, x minus 1. I want you guys to solve this quadratic equation for me. So I helped you with the fraction part, but now it's over to you. I want you to go through that 4-step process of standard form, factorize, split, and solve. And then I want you to tell me what you get. And if you get stuck, the onus is on you to ask questions and to represent yourself. Because I can't see your face, I only have limited like stuff to see if you know what's going on. And so you need to make sure you ask questions or let me know how you're feeling. Okay, solve the one in the big block for me. And then you can tell me your answers when you get them. I know I'm going to have to multiply these guys out. I'll give you that tip. No. So that ends up being x squared, and then minus 2x. So that's 5x. And then it comes across, it becomes minus 5x. So that's minus 8x. I am skipping some steps here. So be aware that you might have to do more steps. Minus 14. So that's 0, and that's 15. So my standard form is that. But I still want to factorize that. And so what are my answers going to be? So Sange and Amy, I think I agree with you, because you can see that if you split this, you're going to get x minus 5 is 0, x minus 3 is 0. And I mean, it's okay. We can just go straight to the answer. So x is 5 or x is 3. Now, that was a bit harder. So I just want to do a quick class vote. Thumbs up if you feel good. Thumbs down if you don't feel so good. And take a screenshot if you need to, or watch the recording if you need a bit more time on this example. Are there any questions before I move on? Okay. Now, we are going to move on to the next example, but I'm actually going to choose. Let me choose this one. I'll move that one out the way. So I want to start by asking you, oh, I've already chosen that one. That's the one from up there, isn't it? X plus 2, 1. Okay. Actually want to do this one then. Let's do this one for now. So if you look, I'm going to move this out the way in a moment. So our whole focus is on this one. What is my LCM for this quadratic equation? I want everyone to put what you think the LCM will be. Clearly, this equation, I have to get rid of these things at the bottom, but in a legal way. And to do that, I need to build what's called an LCM. And so I want to know from you in the chat, what is that LCM? What do you think? If the purpose of the LCM is I'm going to multiply both sides by something that's going to knock out all of these fractions. What do you think the LCM is? Who is feeling generous? Who is willing to give to the group? Who wants to give to the group? There's definitely going to be a 3, Amy. There is definitely going to be a 3 involved, because if I don't have a 3 on top, then this fraction is going to stay. So I need a 3 to cancel, but I probably need a bit more. What else do I need from the bottom here? So 3 is a good start. What else? So exactly, there's an x minus 1 and an x plus 2. You actually don't need to have 2 lots of 3. You only need to have every character represented who's here. So the moment you've included 3, you're fine, but you have to include these other ones, x plus 2 and stuff. Okay, now, this is quite a big LCM. Now, some students prefer to just learn the method off by heart. Initially, I like to show students the whole picture, but the problem is it gets a bit full and cluttered. So what we have to do is we basically have to multiply both sides but this side I put in a bracket, and that side I put in a bracket. And as you get more comfortable with this, you'll be able to leave the step out. But just for now, let's do this. And then on this side, I'll put it over 1 because, and over here, are you all happy with me multiplying both sides by 3 times x minus 1 times x plus 2? Give me a thumbs up if you understand why I have to multiply both sides by that and that, which basically came from here. Now, the only job in life of the LCM is to knock out the fractions, but this one is a bit harder because can you see there is a plus sign here? So this one needs to be multiplied by this and by this, whereas this one has life easy. It only has to multiply by just this. Now, there is a difference there. So give me a thumbs up if you understand why on the left-hand side, I need to multiply it into 2 things, whereas on the right-hand side, I just have to multiply it by 1 thing. Because that's the most difficult idea in the whole question. And give me an unhappy face or a thumbs down if you don't get that. So my next step, I'm going to multiply this green thing by this thing over here. And I'm also going to multiply it by that. But on this side, I'm only going to do it like that. Okay, let me show you what this means. Can you see there's an x plus 2 on the bottom and there's an x plus 2 on the top? That means it's equivalent to 1. So what's left? It's just 4 times 3 times x minus 1. Or if I use dots instead of multiplication to make life easier, it's going to be 4 dot 3 dot x minus 1. Give me a thumbs up if you followed the right-hand side explanation. Or give me a happy face if you followed why the x plus 2 cancels out and I got left with this bit here. Don't be shy. You can either be like unhappy, happy, that it all counts. I just need to get a sense of where you're at. Okay, now I need to multiply this into these 2 things. Now, what happens is when I multiply this first bit by this one, can you see for the first bit, there will be a 10 left at the end. But when I multiply this, what is going to get cancelled out? The 3 is going to cancel out with that 3. The x minus 1 is going to cancel out with that x minus 1. And what is the only thing that's going to be left next to the 10? Tell me in the chat, what is going to be left next to the 10? So I'm multiplying this thing by this thing. And I want to know, the 10 is already there. What's left behind after cancelling? It's going to be the x plus 2. Yes. But I'm not done. So this part is done. But now I need to multiply this bit over here by this thing. So I'm going to go plus. There is going to be 1 there. But I want to know what is going to be left next to the 1. Now, I know there's a 3 on the bottom and there's a 3 here. So I think the 3s are going to cancel. But what's going to be left next to the 1? What is going to be left next to the 1? Now, this is the tricky thing. There's going to be 2 things, and it's going to be x minus 1, and it's also going to be x plus 2, because only the 3 got cancelled out. And so the stuff on top needs to be multiplied by 1. Now, this is getting properly hard. So if you need to rewatch this, don't stress. Most students would struggle with this. But now that I've helped you, I want you to try and solve this quadratic equation. Can you move forward and solve that for me? And I want you to remember the 4-step process. And then I'll show you the model answer afterwards too, so that you have a clear, like you've been through the journey, but you can also see the process. So see if you can solve that for me. So I'm going a little bit quickly now, but I get 18 and then 12 comes across, becomes plus 12. So I get this as my standard form. What are the answers going to be for this one? Okay, now what are my final answers going to be here? Yes, Amy and Sange, I think you are onto it there. We have x is 6 or x is minus 5. Now, the one thing we have to watch out for with quadratic equations with fractions is x could never be minus 2. So x could never be minus 2 in this question, and x could never be 1. But luckily, both our answers avoid that. Why could x never be minus 2 or never be 1 in this question? Who knows why x is not allowed to be those two values? Who knows why x would not be allowed to be those two values? What problems would that cause? You can pop your hand up and just tell me if it's easier than typing. Typing takes a long time. So the reason is, if x was minus 2, it would cause division by 0. Can you see there's an x plus 2? Yes, Sange is correct. So if x was minus 2, minus 2 plus 2 is 0. Or if I had 1 minus 1, I get 0. So sometimes we have to reject answers if they would cause division by 0. But it's not that common. Okay, we're not going to do a whole question now. We're just going to do the bit that is hard, which is this bit at the beginning. So I want you to change this question over here into standard form. So all I want you to do is take this quadratic equation, and I want you to use the knowledge you've learned tonight, where you take the idea of an LCM and you build one, and then I want you to get me a quadratic equation in standard form. If you can do that, it means you've learned a lot tonight, because this is something that students do struggle with. And I'm hopeful, though, that if we do it slowly enough and deliberately enough, it will become easier for you. Okay. Now we've got to watch out because this one gets multiplied into two things, whereas this just gets multiplied into one thing. Because basically on this side, there are two terms. So each of them gets multiplied by this x minus 4. On this side, it's actually quite easy. We're just going to have 2x times x minus 4 is all that you get on this side. Let me make it, I'm making it a bit difficult here, but basically, now, what are we going to get on the other side? Well, when you multiply by the first thing, the x minus 4s are going to cancel, and you get left with a 3x plus something. So 3x plus something. And that is because I canceled out the x minus 4s, and then it's x times 3, which is 3x. But now, when I multiply this by this, what's going to happen is the x's are going to cancel, and I'm going to get left with, let me make a bit more space. So x times x minus 4 times x minus 3 over x, the x's cancel, and I get x minus 4 times x minus 3. And then on the other side, like I said, we already had a 2 there, and that is just times by the x and the x minus 4. So that was a bit hard, but can you get that into standard form for me? And then we're going to close the evening off. So what is that in standard form? What do I need to do to get that? And then we're done for today. Then you've worked hard and you've climbed the mountain. I get x squared minus 4x minus 12. And Amy agrees with me, which is, I'm glad to hear that we are both on the same page. If everybody else get that, anybody else get the same thing? Just give me a thumbs up if you followed that. I mean, that is probably pretty hard, but it really boils down to just multiplying both sides by this thing. If you understand that bit and how this gets rid of fractions,